Now, back to the next panel, and I really look forward to a critical and fresh dialogue on the topic of technological innovation in credit insurance and surety business. So in this interview, we will cover the state of the industry and the latest developments and discuss how can credit insurance play a pivotal role in mitigating risk associated with expanding trade and investment ventures. So we are really looking forward to hear what you're saying. And Henning Rahlf, Commercial Director at SCHUMANN, now takes over. Now to you, Henning.
Thank you so much, Robert. And also from my side, a very warm welcome to this session of our SCHUMANN conference, which is recorded and streamed live from Hanover. So before starting in this interview, I'm so happy that you, Richard, are with me and with the audience. And I'd like to give a short introduction, who you are and why I'm so looking forward on the answers you have for us. So Richard, you started your career in the industry quite a long time ago, I think 1989?
Correct.
Okay, so you started with an NCM, is a predecessor of Tradius.
Correct.
Right? And then you headed over to the wonderful state of Bavaria in Germany, spent some time with Munich Re, and then moved over to Asia, to I think first Australia,
Correct.
and then back to Hong Kong with QBE. And now you're back in Europe. You're the Executive Director of ICISA, the International Credit Insurance and Surety Association. And therefore, I think you're very representative for this market and can give us a bit of outlook what has changed. Great to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. And I commend SCHUMANN for putting this day on, because I never get tired of telling people my dream is always to come to a birthday party, and when I say I do credit and surety, that I get something more than a blank stare. And I think this is exactly what you're doing, and thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, and hopefully we can help to make also others have this birthday party introduction given more easy. So I told you are in the industry for quite a long time, but it's an industry that is very, very old in tradition. I mean, it's I think more than 300 years ago that the first credit insurance deals were signed in somehow pubs in London around the Lloyd's syndicates, where mainly shipping was underwritten and the risk was covered. So 300 years ago is quite a long time. But if you focus on the more recent times, what, from your perspective, is changing? Mainly from a tech perspective, how is speed changing in this area?
Well, the first thing I'd like to make clear is that I was not around in 1724. And if you look, and if we talk about tools and instruments today, 1724 was the year that the mercury thermometer was invented. This week, the iPhone 16 was presented with a whole lot of artificial intelligence features. So in brief, everything changed. And in the past, let's say 20 years, that has gone much, much faster than any of the years before. And if, for instance, when my eldest daughter graduated high school, she was given a speech by one of the professors and said, "You will all get a job in an industry which does not exist today." And that is exactly right. And that has never happened before. So what we see is a much smaller world, everyone talking to everyone, doing business with everyone, exporting to everyone. That doesn't mean you know everyone. And it's an old saying that you trust the people you know, but you do business with the people you don't know as well. And this is where the trade credit insurance industry comes in. And that has gained tremendously in importance in the past 20, 30 years. We, as an industry, give the confidence to the traders in our jurisdictions to actually do business with people they do not know. And the other thing is like the gentleman said at the graduation ceremony of my daughter, there is a lot of innovation going on. And innovation brings uncertainty. Is this innovation going to be something which will make money? Is this company a company that will actually become the next Apple? And we do need to deliver to them, right? Our clients do. That's what credit insurance is for, to take away that uncertainty. But what is most striking is the increase in speed that we've seen in the economy in general over the past 20, 30 years. Basically from a horse and carriage in 1724 to instantaneous communication, which doesn't even need people anymore. APIs, right? We've talked about that today. So what has changed in that time? In general, everything.
Okay. And one interesting thing you talked about was this insurance is not only covering a certain risk. I think you said you're replacing trust, or you are the ones giving trust to people who do not know each other but want to deal with each other. What is needed to create such a trust, especially from a tech perspective? What creates technical trust?
One word: data. What we need, and this will come back again and again and again, is if we underwrite a certain risk, we have to have information to underwrite that risk. I recently got an expose from somebody in the London market in 1953. It was typed, scanned, and the presentation that person delivered said there is this new innovation called protracted default. Not sure how to underwrite it, because this is all about legal systems and what do we know. But then again, there is also political risk. And hey, we can't touch this. This is made by states. It should be borne by states, because there is no way we can underwrite it. What do we need to underwrite these type of risks, these innovations? Data and information. And of course, systems to store it, to sort it, to make it accessible, and to maintain it. Okay. Does that make sense?
Makes sense for me. So you or the industry, the insurance industry needs data to create the trust. Okay. And how is the data flowing? You said, okay, there was a report that was scanned, but I assume it's not the up-to-date way of transporting data. Or
that's absolutely right. And if I think in the beginning of my career, I did some export underwriting, and we had a client with buyers on Cyprus. Now, Cyprus was seen as something really exotic. Not anymore, right? We bought information from information bureaus, and that was delivered on airmail paper. It took about 3 weeks.
This blue?
This blue, very thin paper, which would save you half of a postage stamp. Then it would come in to our mailroom, take a day, find its way to the underwriter. What do we see now? Now we see almost instantaneous information. That is what we need, because that's what the economies need. That's what our clients need. If they have a shipment ready to go, they're not going to wait for 3 weeks. That was then. Now speed is a little bit higher. Again, without applicable information systems and the ecosystem in which it's embedded, it's not going to happen.
Okay. So, and understood how the data is flowing, but how are you handling these huge amount of data? I mean, you can no longer read it manually, even if it's transported electronically. So, what does the industry need to handle these? I assume thousands of data points.
So we need information systems. That's clear.
Okay.
And we need information systems which are relatively agile. If you look at typically the big companies in our field, they build huge proprietary information systems, and they do that once every 12 to 15 years, give or take. In the meantime, if something needs to be adapted, probably will, it'll take a while, but it's not really agile. Because the nature of the information is changing all the time, because our clients expect much more of our precision in underwriting, those information systems must be agile. Secondly, what we need is probably a different type of underwriter. The underwriter in the olden days, let's call it that way, sat in front of a paper file, looked at all the information, read the information, formed an opinion, put something in a system, if that's what they had, which was basically an administration system. What we have now is much more decision and decision support systems. Decision systems for relatively repetitive and easy risks. And that means there will be a different type of underwriter on the back end feeding in information. If you look at this country, if you look at this trade sector, if you look at, let's say, this class of a growth class of company, this is what we are willing to underwrite. That is totally different from peering in each and every file every time. What we also need is an information system that, in case of larger and complicated risks, is a decision support system to that underwriter. That the underwriter sits there, gets a ready-made file on his screen or her screen, selects what kind of information will be needed to underwrite this specific risk, and it might even get, it often does get, a proposal from the system, this is what you need to do. That is a tremendous development, and I see this going on and on with AI. I do not believe that in the short or medium term, human underwriters will be completely replaced. But I do think the work of the human underwriter is going to change drastically, insofar as it hasn't done so. So the system goes from a pure admin to an assistant to the underwriter.
Yeah, very, very interesting to hear it from you, because this matches with the experience we are doing. No? So we Schumann are offering these systems to handle data. This is very much the DNA where our company was founded 27 years ago. And yeah, it's exactly as you said. So it's not an fully automated black box underwriting, but yeah, the feature is actually called assisted underwriting. So
Yep,
you need
to
get all the data, sort in a reasonable way, present it to the underwriter, and make it easy readable, and understandable. But we're also facing another challenge, or let me say a new challenge. So with all this data coming up, more and more restrictions are set by governance, are set by the EU. How you're allowed to process the data. So what is it from your point of view? How restrictive are these regulations, and how to deal with regulatory things?
If I can broaden your question slightly, I think regulations are also things which can be extremely helpful. And one of the regulations I am actually waiting for is that throughout, let's start with Europe. If our friends from the UK want to participate, that would be great. And go on to the rest of the world, a unique identifier.
Yeah.
Because that is something we do not have. And you can dream up all the systems you want, but if you do not know which entity you are talking about, it becomes a little bit different or difficult. That number is there. It's called the legal entity identifier. All we need is that governments start to regulate this and say, for tax purposes, every country must use a legal entity identifier. That would be a really, really easy fix. If you look at the other regulations, and it can go from general GDPR, what can you gather, what can you process, and what can you keep in your databases? Yep, we've gone through a learning curve. And the good thing is this regulation, you can feel about it what you want. But in the beginning, it was this big black monster standing in front of us, which nobody actually knew how to deal with. Today, it is not an issue. So what I would like to say is regulation. Sometimes we don't like it, sometimes we do. We always learn to live with it. And that goes for impending regulations on the use of AI, on explainability of decisions made by AI, which we will probably need anyway. If one of my members takes a credit limit decision which is not to the liking of the client, the client will call, or the broker on his behalf, and say, okay, why did you not give me my whole credit limit amount? The weakest possible answer you can give is, well, that's what our AI told us.
Yeah.
And it's also the fastest way to lose clients. So that explainability, yes, it will become a regulation at some point. We also need it. Same goes for operational resilience, DORA in the European Union. Yeah, we need to invest time and money in it, and we would rather invest time and money in other things, but it is useful, and we need to recognize that.
Okay, yeah, accepted. So it's, yeah, I can totally follow your point that there are some regulations needed, and your first point, the unique identifier, is actually something I can remember the really first IT projects we were running at Schumann. It was always about how to identify clients, how to make it unique of a whole company, and how to make it unique of a whole group of companies. And I think the real challenge and ultimate challenge is to make it unique all over the world. I think this will help a lot to automatically process more things.
It will. And one of the tasks of industry associations like ICISA, mine, is to tell this to governments and say, hey, this will actually do you a lot of good.
You're processing on setting up these identifiers, or how hard it is to convince?
No, it's set up. The Glyph Institute, the institute that does everything about the legal entity identifier. It's there.
Okay, so each and every company has an identifier.
Yeah, you can ask for one.
Okay.
Yeah. Two things I did want to spend some time on with regulations. And the first one is capital regulations. And not only in the insurance industry, but also in the banking industry. In the insurance industry in Europe, we've got Solvency II, and a lot of countries around the world have some kind of similar regime or offshoot. What is clearly the goal of the regulator is to make insurance companies as solid as possible. We do not want bankruptcies. For those of you who remember Svenska Krediet at the beginning of the 90s, it's something you don't want to repeat. But on the other hand, you don't want them to be too heavily capitalized because investors will say, well, insurance companies, not really a good investment. I need to invest too much to get too little out of it. And the other part, and that's more on the part of our clients, is capital regulations of the banks. Banks are important clients to the credit insurance industry. We are in the process of getting specific Basel 3.1, Basel 4, Basel Endgame, whatever you want to call it. It's all the same, right?
Yeah.
How banks can use credit insurance for capital relief purposes. If that is made much more heavy than it is today, that is effectively a drain on financing of the real economy. And that is a threat. This morning, the PRA, the British regulator, came out and gave us a piece of news which was not quite welcome, saying we see certain parameters which have been established in the framework of Basel or not. We do not see any room to deviate from this from credit insurance. And if that should cost financing to the real economy, so be it. That's not welcome. Okay. So let's see how we go about that. And the other one is export restrictions and sanctions. And again, I'm coming back to data.
Yeah.
I think all of us in the Western world have seen news items that products from our own countries have found their way into the Russia-Ukraine war. Although the export of some goods are sanctioned, some dual-use goods may not be exported, and even though they are finding their way into zones where we don't want to see them. This is one of the responsibilities of the credit insurance industry, saying we know what our supply chain looks like, we will control our supply chain, and that will cost a lot of data. And we're not there yet.
So it costs a lot of data, but also capacity or tech to process the data, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, if you have to, I know because we have this functionality, but there are, I think, thousands of sanction lists you have to take care of, and you're not allowed to miss any of these to check. And if you fail to check them, and there's all these dual-use goods or sanction goods on it, well, you might have a problem.
So it's gather the data, assess the data, develop the skills for underwriters to find the data sources and to look at that data. We can simply not say anymore, we used to have in our credit insurance policies, that everything which is illegal is excluded from the cover. That was very nice, and it doesn't work anymore.
It was very easy for you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for this insight. So I will definitely take with me good and bad regulations as a takeaway. So where regulation can help, and where, challenging regulations can be easily handled with appropriate technology, I think.
And I think a lot of the responsibility is on you, because on Schumann, and on your competitors, because we look at you to help to develop these mechanisms so that we can do our job. And in the meantime, let's not forget that, serve our clients, because trade will be done. We have got to find a way to have that trade done and covered in a good way.
Okay, we will definitely take this challenge to help your industry in serving appropriate technology. Richard, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Henning, and thank you for having me.